Is Ohio State Michigan an elimination game for the playoff?
It is if Michigan loses, Molly. They have absolutely no road to the playoffs because they played just a complete garbage non-conference schedule. Ohio State has a slightly better chance because Ohio State went on the road a couple of weeks ago, a couple of months ago now, and won at Notre Dame. That's an impressive win. Notre Dame isn't elite, but they're good, and that's a tough road win. So I think they're both in. Michigan's done. Ohio State is in trouble, but with a chance, only a chance.
When you think about Michigan, how do you feel as we reflect on Michigan and the kind of season that they've had, Paul? Put in perspective exactly what it is that we've seen from Michigan. How impressed are you or non-impressed are you about them?
Well, Stephen, they've been dominant until the last 2 weeks. Ironically, when Harbaugh went out and they probably were no longer able to use signals that maybe they got surreptitiously, they were the most dominant team in the country. I mean, they were powerful. They were just I mean, they were not only beating teams, they were destroying teams. The last 2 weeks, they've struggled. It's also the two best teams they played on the road at Penn State. They played well. They dominated the game, but not in a crushing and overpowering fashion. Last week, I think it was a sandwich game at Maryland. Mike Locksley does a good job, but that game should not have been as close. But with Ohio State ahead, I understood that. But this week's totally different. I think the off the field stuff is getting to them a little bit. I mean, it's so overwhelming. I mean, if you're a Michigan player, you can't go anywhere. You can't look up at the TV without seeing your coach on there making some ridiculous comparison, like crazy Uncle Joe at Thanksgiving. So I think it's had an effect. Now this week, it's a different situation. They have not only won the game against Ohio State the last 2 years, Stephen A. They've dominated the game.
Yeah, they won the game 87 to 50 in the last two meetings against Michigan. But Harbaugh has to understand, unlike NFL football, the coaches is always the dominating figure at a college campus. If you look at Alabama, no matter who goes there, it's Coach Saban. Michigan is the same way with Jim Harbaugh because he's such a commanding and dominating presence. But you said that you believe that if Ohio State lose, they still an outside chance. But because I'm looking at Georgia, I think Georgia is probably the only team that could lose the SEC title game and still make the college football playoff because they've been so dominating over the last 3 seasons. But Ohio State, and we got Florida State in this situation with their quarterback going out, Paul. Do you believe that they could, even if they win out, I believe if they win out, they should be in the college football playoff. But I think if Florida State loses one game with their quarterback being out, I don't think the committee puts them in.
Shannon, I think you're right. I think Florida State is in deep trouble. Now, one thing they have to do, they have a game Saturday night at Florida. Florida's trying to get to a bowl game, so we're not talking about an elite team, but it is a rivalry game. How does their backup quarterback play? And then the following week against Louisville, they need to be dominant. If they barely get by either game, I think the committee is going to look at that and go, Jordan Travis was the reason why they were an elite team. And quite frankly, I think they very well may be kept out. And I know both of you think maybe they should, but they shouldn't be put in over other schools that have been dominating, other schools that have been elite. And you mentioned one of them. If Alabama somehow beats Georgia, I'm not keeping Georgia home so Florida State can go and get blown out by 40 points in the semifinals like we saw in the final game last year with TCU. We've had enough of that.
Listen, I want to veer left because I had a subject, and I've mentioned this on several occasions, and who better to talk to about it than you, Paul Finebaum. I understand that Colorado Buffaloes have nosedived. We understand that they've lost, 6 of their last 7 games. You've got 7 losses on the season. It hasn't been impressive as of late. We get all of that. I don't know. I mean, the early success that they enjoyed, I think that Deion, he told both me and Shannon, he need those meat and potato brothers, and I don't know if he's going to ever get those guys there. I personally have a dream that man will end up in the SEC at some place like Texas A&M, even though I think that's pie in the sky. That's likely never going to happen. What do you make of the job that you've seen him do in Colorado and his chances of moving on, particularly after the way Colorado has struggled over the last 2 months or so?
Yeah, I mean, I think the worst thing was also the best thing for Deion. And I'm not blaming you two, but I am blaming you two, okay? Because I sat here 10 weeks ago and you guys saw what was happening. I mean, I'm watching on TV, you're on the sidelines, you brought it here, and we all started talking about, are they a playoff team? No, they're not a playoff team. Are they a bowl team? Maybe. But he had so much to overcome. And I think because of his magnetism and charisma and what he brought to that program, they were able to beat TCU. They were able to turn games that they probably shouldn't have done. But then the reality struck. I said it a year ago, Stephen. I didn't want him to go to Colorado. I thought he needed a better place. I think he's okay there, but the hill is too tall. And, you know, A&M, I don't think is a possibility, but there's a job there for him. I think he needs to spend another year from a credibility standpoint, try to build it, and then make a value judgment. I talk to coaches all the time at good schools who end up losing to a school like Georgia and go, I don't know what else I can do. I mean, they've got 5 stars in the starting lineup, and they've got 5 stars at second team. Deion you can't do that in 1 year in college football. You can't play elite teams and succeed. So I think he's in a conundrum. I think it would be a bad look if he just bailed, but I think if he gives it 2 years, and by the way, his best players couldn't leave with him anyway after 1 year because they've already made the move, then I think the world is his oyster. I think he could go anywhere.
So you're saying you believe that once if Shador comes back, goes to the end, obviously he'll have to go. You believe that will be the time in which Coach Prime needs to go ahead and make a move.
Give me something. Gotta take a rest just so I can breathe.